To day 3 in our week-long series focusing on the threat of terrorist attacks on our nation's schools. Today, I want to try to answer the question that quite possibly is the most important question of the week. Why? Why would the terrorists want to wake up the proverbial sleeping giant once again by attacking not our towers, but this time our children? The answer is what, as you're about to hear, isn't as obvious as you might think. It is not about body counts or violence or spreading fear. It is about the backlash, and more importantly, it is about how that backlash would be used. To day 3 in our week-long series focusing on the threat of terrorist attacks on our nation's schools. Today, I want to try to answer the question that quite possibly is the most important question of the week. Why? Why would the terrorists want to wake up the proverbial sleeping giant once again by attacking not our towers, but this time our children? The answer is what, as you're about to hear, isn't as obvious as you might think. It is not about body counts or violence or spreading fear. It is about the backlash, and more importantly, it is about how that backlash would be used in propaganda in the foreign media to unite extremists all over the world against us. Tonight's episode is called The Aftermath. It is really the whole reason that I decided to do this series. Maybe, just maybe, if America knows the reaction that these monsters want from us and expect out of us, we will refuse to hand it to them. Brad Thor, author of the new book, The First Commandment, and former member of the Department of Homeland Security's Analytic Red Cell program, is back tonight. We also have Dr. Zuhdi Jasser from the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, and Bernard Kerik, chairman of the Kerik Group and former police commissioner of New York City. Let me start with this, and I guess it goes to Zuhdi. Tell me a little bit about the Al Jazeera effect. They want something so horrific where they are raping our children, killing them, torturing them, stuffing them out the windows, having the whole media see, because they want us to do what?
They, as you can see in Iraq, Glenn, they feed off of sectarian divisions, and they feed off of creating this division so that they can continue to claim the mantle of religion, and no matter how much monstrous or evil what they do is, they still see the end justifying the means. So if they can separate the world into Muslim and non-Muslim and attack and commit such an act of evil that you start to get a rage response like we saw here in Phoenix right after 9/11. A man was gunned down by a hate crime by virtue of looking Muslim. And what Al Jazeera would do is start putting this all over the Middle East media. 80 million watchers would see this happening, and the terrorists would get what they want, which is to sow unrest, to create chaos, Muslim versus non-Muslim, and the most potent weapon against what they seek are the moderate Muslims that are liberty-minded, that want to take away their mantle of religion and say that they are not only not Islamic, but we want to fight them and declare war on them, and we'll be so busy fighting hate crimes.
Okay, Bernie, I want you to take me two places. First, I want you to take me, what does it look like the day this, God forbid, would happen? What does the country look like that day? What are parents doing? What are schools doing? How do we react that day?
Well, think about this. Post 9/11, that morning, that afternoon, in the days and weeks after the aftermath, in New York City and around New York City, there was depression. There were people that couldn't work, just physically couldn't go to work.
I don't want you to go there yet. I want you to tell me that day. How does the police react? What happens to our schools that day?
Okay, well, here's the thing. It's all going to be dependent on what you said earlier. Are we prepared? You know, on September 11th, we were prepared for a response of some catastrophe. We never knew they were going to hit the towers. Our police departments, Department of Homeland Security, the first responders, do they have protocols, procedures, and plans in place to respond to schools? Do they have evacuation plans to respond to those schools?
But
Are there notification processes to notify the parents? Are there pickup points? Are there head count procedures? These are all things that, if they are in place, it'll make their job much easier.
Time is of the essence, though. You can't hesitate. you've got to stop it immediately, right?
And that's the thing, Glenn. We've talked about this. There is no happy ending to this. When we think about, is there a way to reconcile this? Can we talk the terrorists out of the school? No, we can't. It's like imagining that, what if we could have communicated with the pilots on 9/11? Could we have talked them down? Could we have turned them around and convinced them not to hit the towers? No. These guys are coming here without exit strategies. It's going to be horrific. And every single second we wait to prepare now or to act once this happens, the more children, the more people are going to die.
Okay, so now, Bernie, take me here because this affects our economy. I don't know how mom and dad send their kids back into school a month later. I bet you homeschooling goes through the roof, which means mom or dad, one of them, if they both work, have to quit their job. This changes everything.
It's going to have an overall impact on everything, Glenn. I mean, tourism will come to a standstill. The airline industry will fall. The stock market's going to take a tank. The kids will not return to school immediately if they do at all. People are going to want in-house programs, if you will. There's going to, every parent, I have 2 young girls, they go to school. I will want to know from that point on, what are the schools doing? How are my children protected? What are the protocols and plans? What are the evacuation points? What is the security for the school? Do they have internal critical infrastructure policies and procedures and program systems to screen visitors, to monitor visitors, to see what goes on? Everything will change.
And Glenn, it's important that we also remember that we have to have the best inoculation to this emotional response is to see Muslim organizations saying that they are declaring war on Al-Qaeda, not against terrorism, but the best thing to inoculate the rage response is to
You and I have talked about this over and over again. This is why you're on the show all the time. You are a pray 5 times a day Muslim, and you have been speaking out. And I have been saying over and over again, Muslims, you've got to do it now, because the day something like this happens, it's going to be too late. I mean, Zuhdi, project, if you will, if this happened, you or your family going to be comfortable leaving your neighborhood? And I'm telling you, this is the worst thing that could possibly happen. This is why I'm doing this series. You cannot go out and round people up because they're Muslim. Bad guys are bad guys. Good guys are good guys. But do you going to feel safe? What do you think happens the day if this happened?
We have to be strong. We can't allow terror to get what they want. As Edmund Burke said, the old quotation, for evil to triumph, good men need to stay quiet. And we can't do that. I mean, as I start my fast tomorrow in Ramadan, I know that part of my cleansing of what I do is to gain the strength, not just to condemn terror, but to get Muslims to wake up and start condemning Al-Qaeda, to declare war on them frontally, so that Americans know that we're not only going to run to defend our mosques, we're going to run to defend every America. We don't care primarily about our mosques, but we care about every American and our way of freedom. And remember, Glenn, if we give up liberty and freedom in exchange for a military state in response, we would have lost. That's what they want. They thrive in secular dictatorships.
And you know what, Zuhdi? And you and I haven't met before, and I really have a lot of respect for what you're doing, but the time is running out for the moderate Muslim community to raise a voice that's heard in this country. If you look at FBI statistics, in 2000, there were 48 hate crimes against Muslims in the United States. After 2001, after 9/11, that number jumped 17-fold to 481. I am so worried about what might happen in this country, as much faith as I have in my fellow citizens. The Muslims of this country who are moderate, who are secular Muslims, who do not believe in the Islamist movement, really need to make their voices heard, and we need to help them make those voices heard, whatever it takes.
And you're exactly right, because the numbers you gave, actually still in perspective, are actually pretty low. It used to be almost negligible, and now it quadrupled, like you said. So what we have to do is Americans need to see us leading a charge and not just sleeping and not being apologists.
Bernie, let's say you were the commissioner of police in any town in America, and this happened they attacked schools and raped and murdered children in 5 different schools in 5 different places in America. What the hell do you do?
Well, the response, number one, has to be immediate.
I don't mean on the schools. What do you expect? What do you say? You deal with the schools, but as the police commissioner, you also have to look at the community. What are you expecting?
You know what, Glenn? It's nothing we didn't have to do after September 11th. And when you talk about the attacks on Muslims, we had, if I'm not mistaken, we had about 150 bias crimes against Muslims or people that were perceived to be Muslims in and around New York City, in Brooklyn. You know, it's sort of an educational process, and I think what you're doing is really good on a national level. People have to realize Muslims, for the most part, are law-abiding citizens. They're good religious people. But if the American people don't know and understand that, you know, when something like this happens, they're they're on the attack.
Zuhdi, one last question to you. Tommy Franks said something that really disturbed you. What did he say?
Yeah, in 2003 to Cigar Aficionado, he said that if we have a nuclear attack, a dirty bomb attack, that America would have to set aside the Constitution and have a military law. And I don't think he understands why terrorism thrives in Egypt and in Saudi Arabia, because they are dictatorships and military law. We can't give that up.
I have to tell you, I thought a nuclear attack would be the worst thing that could happen to this country. I don't think so. I think the perfect day is. Zuhdi, Bernard, Brad, thank you very much. We will be back tomorrow for a final installment tomorrow night, an important discussion about preparation. There are practical things that parents and teachers and police and even our own children have to know in case the worst ever happens in their community. You can't wait for the attack to occur before you take action. The panic and the chaos would be just overwhelming. You and your family must prepare now. Also, I want to remind you, all week we've been running a special report from our guests in my free email newsletter available at glennbeck.com. Tonight, we have tremendous, passionate articles about the aftermath of the Perfect Day attack from both Zuhdi Jasser and Commissioner Carrick. You'll also receive tomorrow's reports with our experts' preparation tips, along with video from Afghanistan of terrorists training for a school takeover in English that I've been telling you about all week. Again, it's completely free, but you must go right now to glennbeck.com and sign up. We'll be back in just a minute.